What's up, comic book fans? Pete here from Comic Books Transformed, where me and my very good friend Brian over there talk about comic book adaptations from comics into movies and streaming shows. And Brian, this is our first episode of 2024.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's been a while.
Yes, sir. But I'm very happy to see you, and I'm very excited actually to talk about What If Season 2 with you.
Yeah, we're rolling along with that. And today we're going to cover... Oh, what? I thought you were waving to stop me for some reason. Damn.
Don't tell them the secret.
Today we're going to cover episodes 4 through 6 of What If.
Perfect. Yes. So with What If, we covered the first 3 episodes last time, and I think we were genuinely excited about it.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. Well, what about this next batch? Did you like this next group better?
Less? I think it's a mixed bag. I think the first batch, like the third one, which was the Happy Hogan Die Hard kind of one, was my least favorite.
Yeah.
And I think 2 of them, well, I really liked one of them a lot.
Okay.
And then the others maybe not as much.
Okay.
One less than the others, I guess. I'm curious how you feel about the 3 of them as well as in general.
Yeah. I mean, this show's kind of interesting, right? Because it's like a little cheesy. It kind of is this weird kind of blend where it's like not exactly adult. It kind of feels a little bit like kids, but then it could also be very serious and dark. And then I did not really like this first episode we're about to talk about, but then I did like the following 2.
Okay, so my favorite of the batch was the second one, and I was surprised by it too, actually.
Yeah.
I was expecting more from this first episode, to be honest. So the first one we're talking about is what is the actual title of it? It is what if,
it's got a cheesy title, man. It's What If Iron Man Crashed into the Grandmaster.
Okay, that is a cheesy title, yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, the setup for this was interesting because first of all, this episode was supposed to be part of season 1 initially.
Yes.
So although this episode is mainly from the point of view of Tony Stark, it's really about how Gamora ended up in the season finale of season 1, fighting against Ultron. Which is kind of weird.
Right. It's funny because with a show like this, you have they obviously have moved around a couple of episodes, right? And the first season had this whole Gamora arc that they just like kind of took out. In this episode, though, I think they probably wouldn't have had a little introduction talking about her and her importance. I think they would have just cut right to the Tony Stark stuff. And then, it has this sort of very kind of like, oh, shocking kind of ending. And I think that would have been to energize you to see where her story was going next.
See, but, in the second episode, they preface it by saying we don't often do sequels.
Right.
But it feels like Gamora as a character in this needs more to show up and appear as she did in the What If season 1 finale.
Yeah.
Like, it's not enough of her in this and enough of a reason to warrant her being on that team there, like what's, I mean, I guess it's interesting that she killed and replaced Thanos, but like I feel like that's it. That's all it is.
Right.
What happened? Why? I'm not why. We know why, but like, what else happened to her other than that?
Yeah. I think that there's one point I wanted to bring up with you, which was that this season in particular, it feels like these episodes are like mashups of the different movies. In particular, they're like more successful movies to become like a new story. So like the second one is like essentially Iron Man, but in Thor Ragnarok. Oh, I'm sorry, the one we're talking about right now. Iron Man.
Yeah, I would say it's Avengers and Thor Ragnarok. Yeah.
Yeah. Then the second one is like Winter Soldier and Black Widow kind of mashed together. Yeah. So
and the third one is
kind of talk. Yeah. The third one is like this own thing, which we got to definitely get into that one too. But so let's talk about this first episode. So Tony Stark, there's this really great sequence at the end of Avengers where he's flying the missile that Shield is shot, or maybe even the United States forces have shot, and he's sending it through a wormhole to take out the Chitauri fleet. He does, but the what if twist is that he gets zapped over to Sakaar instead of going back to Earth, or like falling down to Earth.
Yeah.
So that in itself is kind of exciting because, Tony Stark has some experience in the comics being in the Guardians of the Galaxy. And it's kind of cool to think of like Tony in that setting.
Yes, agreed.
But then I feel like the way it's executed is not that great. Like, in Thor Ragnarok, there's this sequence where they're trying to escape on the Grandmaster's ship, and like Jeff Goldblum pops up as a hologram, and he's like, "It's my birthday," and I feel like that's like 45% of this episode.
Yeah, it probably is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in Thor Ragnarok, the whole thing on the planet is these gladiatorial battles. Like, I'm thinking like, oh God, Tony Stark's here. We've seen this list, this like monument of champions. Like, what if Beta Ray Bill's here? Like, that would have been kind of awesome. But no, it's like pod racing.
Yes.
Or like Death Race or something. Like, it was like, I don't know why they chose that as the kind of method of competition here. It seems kind of weird, and it wasn't that interesting, I guess.
Yes. And that goes back to what I was saying, where it's like it's sort of in this middle ground between like a kid's show and an adult show. When they introduce anything to it, it's always like they have to use those like pre-existing models. Like, this has all the designs and stuff from Thor Ragnarok, but they never kind of go outside of the toy box. They never do anything different except with this third episode, the Kahhori episode.
Yeah.
And so there's all this Thor Ragnarok stuff, but there's no Beta Ray Bill. There's no like exciting, oh, who's this guy? And it's because like you can't really introduce anyone that's not been introduced in the movies, even though there's a wealth of characters that are in the comics.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. It just seemed like a missed opportunity, really.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, let's talk about like let's just fucking rip into this episode. By the way, I want to also preface this with, we spent months and months just being a part of this social media kind of trend where like, oh, Marvel's declining, Marvel sucks, and we kind of were kinder than most with our reviews. But I think watching this show and watching Echo has made me just excited about Marvel in general. What about you, man?
Yeah, there was when I was watching. So I watched. I watched the third episode. Oh, I'm sorry, the sixth episode, and Echo back to back. So it was really weird to be kind of bookended with like this Native American stuff here.
Yes.
But there was a moment watching Echo. I'm like, holy shit! Like this is, and I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Fuck yeah, yes.
And we'll talk about that soon. Yes,
Brian and I are going to record an Echo review episode after we do this one. But like, with Marvel, it's been around since 2008 at this point. It's 15 years of continuity. And so even within just the movie continuity and the show continuity, there is a lot of stuff to play with. That toy box is big. And I think that like in this particular episode, there's nothing really exciting or creative about it. But then with the Kahhori episode, there's something exciting. And then with Echo, there's something exciting too. But with this, I just, like the guy that plays Tony Stark, he's done Tony Stark in other shows, right?
Yeah, I believe he was the Tony Stark in Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
Okay, so I mean, I like his voice. He sounds very much like Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, but he's got that cadence down.
Right, like Earth's Mightiest Heroes is excellent, and then like the sort of the pre-MCU older stuff that we grew up on, like the X-Men cartoon, is excellent. But then Marvel kind of has this like rut with cartoons that they came out with after the MCU, and I think they're just sort of like a lower quality, and I just never got into any of them.
I completely agree, and it was Earth's Mightiest Heroes kind of was out sort of before Avengers, and I think after that they kind of scrapped that show to make it a more movie-centric cast and style, and the animation quality definitely declined, and it was less. It was definitely more aimed at kids at that point.
Right.
Than Earth's Mightiest Heroes was. Earth's Mightiest Heroes was fantastic. It's like one of the few real bright spots in animation for Marvel, which I know we've often said that DC kind of reigns supreme there with animation. But
yes,
Earth's Mightiest Heroes can go toe to toe with most of those things.
Shit, yeah. I mean, especially once you go beyond the Timverse, Earth's Mightiest Heroes is like just as good as most of it. Yeah. So when I hear that guy doing Tony Stark's voice, it just kind of reminds me of these more recent Marvel cartoons. I'm like, it's not that good. And a lot of the jokes are just kind of plays on things that we've seen in the movies. Like Korg, I like Korg, but the problem is it's one of those things that they've done a lot more in recent Marvel where it's like they just do it to death. And so his jokes didn't really land for me in this episode.
Yeah, and I think we already didn't we already have Korg show up in another episode? Yes, he was. He was in the first episode,
the Nebula one.
So yeah, it just seemed like, hey, like we have Taika Waititi here to record some lines, but how many episodes can we fit him into? You know?
Right. And there's some jokes where you kind of like maybe put a smile on your face, but it's just not that funny. And this episode really is like a comedic episode.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of ragging on it. Do you think there were any kind of high points in this episode?
I mean, this is both a high point and a low point for me. Like Tony built this armor out of all this technology on Sakaar, and it looked kind of cool. It looked like kind of like a alien looking, Hulkbuster armor sort of.
Right.
And he doesn't. I don't know. Like I would have preferred if this was like a kind of a gladiator thing, just like Thor Ragnarok was. It's it was a suit of armor, and then it turned into a car. And
Transformers.
Yeah, I guess sort of. You think I would like it, but no, I kind of didn't really. And also, I don't quite understand. It felt very thin. Like Tony's trying to kind of convince Gamora to not be who she is.
Yeah.
And it seems very like just thin overall. Like, I don't know why there's no reason for why he did it. And ultimately they team up and defeat Thanos, I guess. But it's just like he's just talking to her during the race, and it's just he's convincing her during the race. It was just kind of weird, and I just didn't buy it.
Right, I agree with you because there's nothing that she does that makes her think that she is like redeemable, or that because when it comes to heroes fighting people, they might just take out somebody immediately, especially Iron Man in these movies, just kills people randomly. And, everything he knows about Thanos or like the threat they faced, that doesn't really endear her to him. But for some reason, he's like really focused on converting her and having her turn against her father.
Yeah, I think it relies too much on the audience knowing who the character is otherwise. And I think that's a problem.
Right. That's the exact point I was just about to say. It's like we know what happens with Gamora, and then we also know that Tony Stark has this father complex because of the movies, but it just doesn't make sense that he would like focus on that so much during that race.
Yeah.
So then let's see. I think that you have Jeff Goldblum in it, and he's doing all these lines. The Korg thing where it's just like too much.
Yeah, I also thought he was a little bit too much too. Yeah,
but I think his like second in command, that woman, that's the same actress from. Yeah,
I believe it is. Yes.
Yeah. So with this, basically, I mean, one part that did kind of shock me is that Tony wins the race, but then the Grandmaster isn't going to let him go, and then they accidentally. Well, I mean, Tony kind of causes it to happen, but essentially, one of those staffs that melts people hits the Grandmaster. I was not expecting Jeff Goldblum to melt at the end of
I wasn't either. And it seems like it didn't really faze him very much because he's, there's that little tag at the end where he's get me a bucket.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's that episode. And then at the very end, did you think that Gamora was going to take Tony to be killed by Thanos?
Well, no, because we know what happens to this version of Gamora. They preface this episode by this is a story of how Gamora got to, season 1, the end of season 1. So, they kind of made it fairly obvious, I think.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they tried to make you think otherwise, but I think because the episode slipped out of production order, I think the cat was out of the bag already.
Yeah, and she just friggin' melts Thanos.
Yeah. Everybody's getting melted. And slight correction too. The actor that plays Tony in What If is Mick Wingert. who is not the same actor that it was in Earth's Mightiest Heroes. That was Eric Loomis.
Okay.
But I think he might have played him in other things, but I can't see it yet.
Yeah, there was like a Disney show called like Avengers Assembled. I think he's probably the Tony on that.
Possibly. I think there might have been some crossover with the actors with from Earth's Mightiest Heroes and that, but we don't have to get into that right now.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what if Iron Man crashed into the Grandmaster. So unless you got anything else, we can move on to Captain Carter versus the Hydra Smasher.
Yeah, what if Captain Carter fought the Hydra Smasher? Yeah. Stomper.
Boom. Yes. Hydra Stomper, yes. Doesn't a Hydra Stomper sound like someone that would be against Hydra?
Yeah, well, it was. Wasn't it?
Right, but like, isn't he essentially like the Winter Soldier, where like they convert him and
Well,
make?
But they called him the Hydra Stomper in the first season. There was the suit of armor he was in that Howard Stark built.
Come on, man! Like the first season was like 3 years ago. Okay, do you expect me to remember this shit? Okay, but yeah, no, you're right. It's the Hydra Stomper. He's stomping Hydra, and it's kind of cool because it's like the same story beats as the Winter Soldier, but then they also throw in all the Black Widow stuff too.
Yeah, so I didn't know what to expect from this because we knew it was going to be a sequel. Obviously, Captain Carter is returning here, and I really like this one a lot more than I expected to. I thought maybe I was going to be just tired of it or something, but like you said, that they really just did Winter Soldier plus Black Widow, and I think it kind of worked. There were some really good action scenes in here in this episode.
Yes,
the fighting was actually pretty good.
Yes,
and really one of the only complaints I would have visually in here was there was a few too many like side slow-mo shots.
Okay.
Kind of like that one shot in the beginning of Ages of Ultron. While everyone's like kind of leaping into battle. They did that a few too many times in this episode.
Yeah. They do that.
And I was also even impressed that they sort of had like Scarlett Johansson's kind of weirdish Black Widow haircut in Winter Soldier.
Right.
Get it here.
Right. No, it's weird because it's like this. That's actually what I like about this show the most is it'll almost do like the same story beats and everything is like framed to look like the movie, but then there's like a different character in a different role. And so like there's one part where Black Widow is like, I think outside of like the National Mall, and she runs into Captain Carter, and Captain Carter's just in a car versus like running around. And then she makes some kind of comment like, "Oh, you're not going to go for a run?" And she's like, "I don't have time for that," or she says something like that.
Yeah.
That's
I'm kind of alluding to Captain America and Falcon running around training.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So then, like, even the beginning of this, they go to this ship that's essentially like the beginning of Winter Soldier, where the Cap gets dropped onto a ship with Black Widow too.
Yes.
But then Bucky, that was kind of a cool reveal. It's like you see what's happened to Bucky since World War II in this.
Yeah, and I thought that was really cool. Like this is why I liked it. This was a nice continuity kind of slide here. So essentially what happens is Captain Carter disappears like Captain America did in the main timeline. But after she disappears, Steve and Bucky kind of like team up and like take out Hydra.
Yeah.
So and then Bucky is now kind of he's a secretary or something. It's not SHIELD or anything like that, but he's essentially playing the Robert Redford role from Winter Soldier, but he's not like
a dick,
a spy or anything like that, which is kind of like a cool twist, I think.
Yes, and I was wondering, do you think that like Hydra infiltrated anything here, or like Hydra just basically got stomped out?
I mean, based on the fact that the Red Room is the villain here, I think Hydra's gone.
Okay, universe. right. Because at one point they have Frank Grillo voicing what the fuck is Crossbones' real? No, I was trying to think of like his real name is.
Oh my God, I know this.
Let's see. I wrote it down. Let me see. He is. Oh, this is good. Like nice little pause in the audible. Yeah. Jesus Christ. I wrote down. God damn it. You're much better at looking up shit than I am. Let's see. I wrote down Brock Lumlow.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that was so worth it. It was so worth it to just stop the flow.
Yes.
But so then the thing is, do you think that he's genuinely just a good agent of SHIELD then?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Which again, I think is a nice little like Easter egg kind of thing. It's like, hey, like, this like I feel like the change had actual repercussions on this universe, which is something I don't think that they do well enough in some of these episodes.
Totally agree with you.
That's kind of why I appreciate it. I mean, obviously, Winter Soldier is one of our favorite movies in the MCU, easily in our top 10.
Usually,
and Black Widow was not, but still, I think it kind of works here, mashing these together.
Yes. Yeah, it's like when you kind of combine like two foods that you really love one, but you don't like another, and then you combine them and you're like, oh, this is fucking great.
Yeah, it kind of elevates it a little bit.
Exactly. I wish I had a metaphor for that, but I couldn't think of one off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I was thinking of something with ice cream, but it wasn't coming to me. Yeah, so okay, so the Watcher says something like at the very end, he says something like, oh, there's only one Captain Carter or something like that. He says like Captain Carter is an exception. But isn't Captain Carter in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and she gets killed?
Yeah, so no, the line he says is that there aren't many Captain Carters, but there's only one that I would call friend.
You go.
Because they know each other from season 1. That's the implication there.
Okay.
And then there was a very interesting ending to it too, with the Watcher there kind of being surprised at what happened. Peggy gets kind of taken away into another universe, and which we find out is 1602, which we know is an upcoming episode.
Yes. What is the guy who voices the Watcher's name? I can't remember it off the top of my head.
Jeffrey Wright.
Thank you so much. I love Jeffrey Wright too, and he's in a movie right now that's getting like a lot of acclaim right now.
I just saw the trailer for that. I think I can't remember the name of it. Or is it a show?
No, it's a movie, and it's called like Black History or something like that, or like American History.
Yeah, I want to see that.
Yeah, Black Fiction. I think it's called Black Fiction actually, and yeah, it looks really great. I've heard really great things about it. I love him, especially from Westworld. But what I like about the Watcher is he says such like, epic kind of things, such dramatic things, but then every so often he'll have like a little slip and he'll be like, what the hell? And he has that moment when he sees that weird energy absorb Captain Carter.
Yeah, and you actually get to see like a visual reaction of him too, because you don't often see him on screen here. And something I don't think maybe they do it every episode, and I haven't noticed it, but this episode there was a nice Watcher in the background shot. I believe it was when the Red Room was coming down, which was probably my favorite one I've seen so far in this season.
Yeah,
which I think I've only seen 2 though, so maybe that's not really saying much.
Yeah, no. There have been some. I don't know how many in general, but probably there's one in every episode. It's just maybe you have to be eagle-eyed to see it.
Yeah,
but I remember there was like a really cool one where he was like the horizon in like one big shot where like a car was going across the horizon.
Well, that was from season 1. That was man, I don't remember which one that was, but that was early season 1, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Welcome to Comic Books Transformed, where middle-aged men struggle to remember things. If you love middle-aged men struggling to remember things, this is your kink, man. You're into this. So, I was going to ask you. We were talking about voice acting before. The guy that does Steve Rogers in this episode, I don't think he really sounds like Chris Evans.
Yeah, it's Josh Keaton. He's a pretty good voice actor. He's been in a lot of things. I think he was Bumblebee. No, maybe not. He wasn't in something. I don't remember.
Okay.
I do know the name. I have heard him in other things. Yeah, I guess I can agree with you that I don't think he sounds like Chris Evans, but I also don't think Chris Evans has like as imitatable voice as like Robert Downey Jr. does per se.
Agreed.
No, yes. There's not as unique. Even like Thor. I mean, even though Chris Evans has voiced himself and everything, I think that's an imitatable voice. But Chris Evans, like if I ask you, hey, do a Chris Evans impression? Yeah. I mean, outside of Todd in Scott Pilgrim, I don't know how I would do that.
Yeah, I probably would try to do an imitation of Cap, and that's what it does sound like. It sounds like an imitation of him, which like the woman that they use for Black Widow, because she's pretty much been the same voice every time, I think, in the show. Bell. Yeah, I think that she kind of makes it her own. It does sound like Scarlett Johansson, but then it like works, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it does work pretty well.
Like I like her the best out of like the Tony Stark and the Steve Rogers. I like
the,
her.
The actors that won't, they're too cool for school and won't reprise their role.
Yes. But speaking of actors that are not too cool for school, Rachel Weisz comes back for this episode.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Yeah. She comes
nice
back as Melina, Natasha's kind of like stepmom, or not stepmom, like fake mom. I don't know what you want to call it.
Yeah. And then
and she's still bad. She kind of redeems herself and or retires in Black Widow, but here she's still running the Red Room.
Yes. Yelena Belova is not one of those Black Widow girls, right? At the end.
You know what? I was trying to look at them, and there was one that was kind of blonde. I don't think it looked like Florence Pugh, but I don't know. Maybe you could have argued, but yeah, I think if she was there, they would have made a bigger deal out of it, and at least had Natasha recognize her or something.
Yeah, she would have had like a line or something, probably.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that would have been a disservice to do it like that.
Agreed. Yeah, because it's so much about Peggy and Steve.
Yeah.
Did you like that? Steve essentially goes to sacrifice himself, and then is it Peggy that shoots the grappling hook and it ties around Rachel Weisz's leg?
Natasha shoots the grappling hook and then attaches it to Melina, and then she can blows up with the Red Room base.
Yeah.
I like that all, and oh god, I had something to say and I forgot it. God damn it!
It's their kink. They're like, oh yeah, they're forgetting
forgetting to remember again.
Yes. we got to start taking some kind of prescription meds or something.
Yeah, maybe there's got to be some kind of memory retaining pill somewhere. I don't know.
I think the beauty about us is that a lot of times we remember that shit like later on when we're discussing something else.
Yeah, it just comes to me randomly and I interrupt and it's just like, and then it completely destroys. Then it messes up whatever I'm thinking about at that moment.
Oh my god, it's a never-ending cycle. But
okay. I remember. I actually do remember. I was going to say I liked the kind of bittersweet sort of ending here, like that felt like an actual what if issue. There's always, I don't think every episode or issue always ended in something horribly dark or anything like that, but there is usually some kind of sacrifice because they're willing to play with the characters' lives a little bit more. They're a little more expendable. And right. I think, Steve sacrificing himself ultimately was a heroic move. And it's a nice kind of like not everything's great and works out in the end sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I appreciated it, that it felt very much like a comic issue.
Yeah, agreed. But it also seems like he might still be alive, right?
Yes, that is true. Yes, because it seems like Peggy was trying to go search for him afterwards.
And so that in itself is kind of like the end of the Winter Soldier, because like Bucky goes down with that helicarrier, but then he's still alive too.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious. Like, I'm thinking, like, would they do a third Captain Carter, and would they attempt to adapt Civil War now with her?
Oh, that'd be so.
I'd be kind of curious about that. I'm not really sure what they would use as the the splitting point between the two factions.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't mind a return here. I mean, obviously we're going to see her again in 1602.
Yeah,
and probably again. But if they haven't already written it or thought about it, I wouldn't mind a Civil War adaptation here.
Yeah, you got me. You got me armchair booking now, or fantasy booking right now, because I'm thinking like, who would she go against? Would she go against Tony? Because Tony's on that Avengers team. That was another thing. I'm glad you brought that up, because like the Avengers team, when the Chitauri are attacking, it's like they have everybody, but they, instead of Hulk, they have Wasp.
Yeah, which was interesting, and they do also name drop Banner.
Yeah,
so he's around. So that's another interesting thing.
It was making me think that like maybe they didn't go through the super soldier serum program that made the Hulk. Like maybe they didn't do that in this version.
Maybe that's an excellent point, actually. And again, if that's true, that's a great little detail for this episode too.
Right. It's all these little, like Iron Man's suit kind of looked different, and then they had Black Widow. Did they have Hawkeye? I don't remember.
I think Hawkeye was there. Yeah.
Okay.
And so, Thor was there. Thor is kind of like, doesn't really change very much in all these. He's always just shows up there. Not much really changes him, except the one episode where he grew up as an only child and without Loki.
And that was a lame fucking episode.
Yeah.
Okay, that's actually a good transition to the third episode. Do you have anything else you want to say about this one?
No, I think that's about it.
Okay, good, because I wanted to talk to you about. Oh fuck, this did the wrong thing. Okay, hold on a sec. I wanted to talk to you about the way that the next episode starts. The next episode is called "What If Kahhori Reshaped the World," and in that episode they start off with Ragnarok. Now, Ragnarok in the movie, it's like it's the end of the movie Thor Ragnarok, and he unleashes, or Loki unleashes Surtur, right?
Yes.
And that's because of Hela and all this kind of shit. But in this episode, What If Kahhori Reshaped the World? It's like Ragnarok happens on its own.
Yeah, and it happens in Odin's time because Odin's the one using the Tesseract. So I guess I would have liked if they explained why.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I guess they don't always explain why, but I think it sounds like you like this episode more than I did.
Yeah.
But and I think I guess I just wanted more of a comic connection than just the Tesseract doing something, you know?
Sure.
I also think they kind of overuse the Tesseract in particular. Like it's the source of so many things in the MCU, and they barely used any of the other stones for anything else outside of the movie they were introduced in.
That is a really, really good point, and I agree with you on that too. It's like, yeah, that one, it like made Captain Marvel like as powerful as she is. It like essentially was like the source of the fucking space bridges that they use, right, or whatever they call them, warp gates or whatever, right? It's like it was like power for the quantum bands, I think, like, you know, just all this different stuff, and then, you know, the bad guys use it to teleport, all different kinds of things. But with that being said, I actually do like that they kind of play around with the lore of the MCU. Like, I like that essentially the Tesseract creates this race of people, and it kind of just reminds me of things that they kind of allude to in other less popular MCU entries. You know, like, do you ever think about Shang-Chi ever?
Not other than the bus fight scene, no.
Okay. I think about Shang-Chi sometimes because it's really weird that there's this like pocket dimension where there are these people and these weird creatures, and essentially they're like a barrier between this dark dimension where this like chaotic entity is going to one. You know?
Yeah.
And then they have that there, and then there's also like that weird fucking Jinn dimension that's in Ms. Marvel.
Yep.
And so I guess I just think that, like,
and don't forget the Eternals.
Right, exactly. And so you and me, we're kind of similar, where it's like in the comics, if you get someone like Kieran Gillen or I don't fucking know, Jonathan Hickman, kind of dabbling with this stuff, you get gold.
Yeah,
you know, and I just feel like if they took this stuff that they're introducing and they like played with it, they could make something really exciting, at least for old guys like us.
Yeah, no, and I think the idea of sort of taking the Tesseract off the field, you know, especially in retrospect of us just saying it's overused, I think that kind of creates an interesting story here. But I didn't find it all that interesting here, honestly. I needed more of a comic connection here. Honest, and you know, we do get Supreme Strange at the end here.
Yeah.
And that's going to connect to something here. You know, I don't know what happens in the final episode here this season, but you know, whether that is tying in with the season or something in the future, I don't know yet.
Yeah, well, so okay, the thumbnail I made for this discussion we're having today is who is Kahhori? And Kahhori is like a completely original character made for this show, made for the MCU. So that comic book connection that you're looking for, it's not there with the character, the main character of the episode. With that being said, like, what did you think of this original character? Like this character that essentially they're putting in league with all these other iconic characters.
I kind of couldn't shake Pocahontas out of my head.
Okay. I didn't think about Pocahontas, but
Yeah, it felt like, I don't know. It kind of gave me like an Eternals vibe, but with Pocahontas as like a cover all. Like, I don't
okay.
know.
No, I understand. For me, I kept thinking, man, they watched Prey and they wanted to make something that was like Prey.
You know what? I did have that thought too. There was one of the opening shot, the establishing shots was like their village, and I'm like, oh yeah, this feels like Prey, but it didn't. I don't think it was like that, other than the kind of just the idea that you were using a Native American tribe.
Right. Now, I've been sort of like oblivious to the YouTubers and stuff that usually say toxic stuff about Marvel when it comes to this show, and I guess about Echo too, but I could only assume what they've been saying about this show and about Echo. Now, with this, I feel like the first thing they would say about Kahhori is that she was a Mary Sue.
Yeah, you're probably right. I could definitely see someone saying that. She does kind of take to her powers very quickly, and it's not even really explained. I don't think they even well explain what they can do. It's just like they can do everything. Like,
it seems like it's like telekinetic powers, essentially.
I didn't quite get that vibe. I mean, because they had people creating like storm clouds and doing all the weird shit. So I don't. I mean, maybe it's sort of telekinesis, but I don't know.
It seemed like it was like
they're also running real fast, like Quicksilver.
Right. But I feel like that could be an extension of telekinesis. Like it felt like Jean Grey just minus the mind control or like being able to read thoughts. Like it's
that I can totally see.
Yeah. And I like that they kind of all had this similar design. They kind of reminded me of this one X-Men character. I think his name is Frail, and he's like from Wakanda. Do you know who I'm talking about? He has
Fragile.
Like fragile. Thank you, Jesus Christ! I'm so lucky I got you, man. But I was thinking because I noticed that like she's amazing right away, right? Like she's just like learning everything right away. The one guy that is her guide, he's like, oh, some people could do this with 3 steps, and she's already got like 7 steps. I could see where they'd be like, oh, she's a Mary Sue. I think the problem is that with this story, she's experiencing this stuff in this pocket dimension, but then these conquistadors are like taking over her village in the real world, right? And it seems like the passage of time in the real world is just like hours, and so it makes it seem like real quick that she becomes so powerful in the other world.
Yeah, I think that would be a good explanation, but I don't think they really imply that the time flows differently. I think that it's just that I think those people say that, I mean, they say that you don't age and you don't die, but I don't know if there's any time difference really going on there. And one thing you could say is that she was driven to kind of get back to save her brother because she knew her brother was in trouble, and that's why she was able to do these things. Yeah. But at the same time, like there's a point where she's like happily dancing too. So, and forgetting her trouble. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with it really, but it doesn't change the fact that I just wish this was, I wish they could have used some other comic idea instead of this.
Yeah. Well, you said that there's a 1602 episode coming. I
think this the next batch. It's got to be in the next batch because there's only 3 left.
Right. So I think that this takes place in the 15th century. So it'd be like the 1400s. Do you think the implication is that like Kahhori might be around then and alive?
I thought it was going to lead directly into it, to be perfectly honest, but it seems like it's not.
Okay.
I feel like they're going to have kind of like a team up episode at the end, like they always do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like they always like they did that one time before.
Yes.
And I think that's what Sorcerer Supreme Strange is getting her for.
Yeah. Every time I read Sorcerer Supreme Strange, which is hard to say, I always just think of the Pizza Hut Super Supreme Pizza. It's hard for me to take him serious. But so you're thinking that he's gonna like gather a couple of people, and that like what, like the Wanda that's in the 2nd episode is going to go against him? What do you think?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I don't know who the villain's going to be. I have no idea.
Okay.
But I imagine that they're going to band together and do something.
Do you think that because it's Wanda and Nick Fury from like 1602, and then there's Strange and Kahhori. Do you think that Strange is with Wanda and Fury, or do you think they'll be against each other?
I think Strange is who took Peggy. But I'm sorry, no, that's not true because that she went to 1602. You're right.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. And then like the last time we saw him, wasn't he like trapped in like a universe that was just him? Like they trapped him.
No, he was trapped. He was trapped in his own episode, but he was also a part of that final battle against the Ultron thing.
Right. But I think that the Ultron thing and him are trapped together at one point.
Maybe. You know what? Maybe if we maybe I'll go back and rewatch that episode and just maybe it'll give some good context for our next batch of episodes.
Yeah, I think that the Killmonger steals like Ultron's power, and then like Killmonger and Strange are trapped in some other dimension or something.
Maybe.
Yeah. There we go. For all you guys that like forgetful old men. Playing right up to it. Okay, so we've covered 3 episodes. So let's go ahead and do our ranking so we can get to our Echo episode.
Okay. Are we ranking just these 3 or just all 6?
Let's just do these 3, and then at the end of the season, we'll do all 9.
Well, I mean, for me, it's pretty obvious that I like the Captain Carter one the most. Yeah. I would probably put the Tony Stark one second, and I'll put the Kahhori one third. I unless they change my point of view with doing something great with her in the next couple episodes. All I can feel is this is like a wasted slot to do something other comic book thing that they could have done.
Wow. Okay. You and I are on different pages tonight. Usually we're on the same page. I would actually put the Kahhori one first.
Interesting.
Especially because of what happens in the first scene of Echo that we're about to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's that.
Yeah.
So then there's that. And then I would definitely put the Captain Carter one next. And then the Iron Man's way low for me. It'll probably be number 9 for me unless there's a stinker in the next batch.
Yeah,
man.
We'll see.
Oh, okay, cool. So that's me and Brian talking about episodes 4 through 6 of What If Season 2. Please come back next week where we're going to talk about episodes 7, 8, 9. We're going to finish the series. Right now, Brian and I are going to go record Echo episode 1, the review. Let us know, are you into these 2 Disney Plus shows? And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. All right, guys, we will see you